Happy Sunday afternoon to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to today's Vogan's European Outlook. The northeastern half of the United States has seen, in some places, a record-breaking snow event. That system that dumped all the snow anywhere from Philadelphia up through New York City, Providence, Hartford, and Boston up into southern portions of New England. That system is now clearing off into the Canadian Maritimes, and it has left in its wake the coldest morning of the winter so far. 10 degrees in Boston, 11 in New York City, 9 in Philadelphia, and 14 degrees in DC. Of course, these are Fahrenheit readings, but look at this all the way down to Miami. We've got a temperature currently at 41 degrees. 23 in Jacksonville, and 34 in Tampa. And we've got more cold coming in the next week or so in waves as the lobes of the tropospheric polar vortex continue to descend southwards over North America. And of course, I've been alluding to that now for quite some time. The overall driving mechanism behind the overall northern hemispheric pattern. It is not rocket science, and you can see what is going on way up at stratospheric level. That is now relating to the weather down within the lower troposphere. Interesting stuff, but unfortunately for winter weather lovers, it is not a great winter really across the western portion of Europe here. Now, of course, we've had Storm Malik. It produced the wind gust of 147 miles per hour at Cairngorm. I don't know when the last time we've seen a wind gust in excess of 140 miles an hour. You probably have to go back 3 or 4 years for the last time that occurred. But it's interesting, actually, the location of Brisley Wood in Northumberland. That is the site that recorded a gust of 98 miles per hour with Storm Arwen back in November. Of course, that was the unusual deepening the area of low pressure that came straight out of the north and hammered the eastern portion of the British Isles. Yesterday, we seen a gust of 93 miles per hour at the very same location. And I don't know if it's just me, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of unusual to see the strongest low-level gust in the UK, in Northumberland, in northeastern portion of England. Especially, I can understand it more with the system Arwen that came straight out of the north, and of course hammered the east coast of Scotland and particularly northeastern portions of England. Of course, we've seen with this system bad impacts around the Newcastle area as well. But this system in particular, yesterday, Malik produced a 93 mile an hour gust, and the system actually it was a northwesterly wind, which is slightly unusual to see that location record the strongest gust with a northwesterly wind. But of course, meteorology always has its surprises, and like I say, I may be wrong. Maybe somebody can turn around and go, "Well, Mark, it's not that unusual," and I'll hold my hand up and with that one. But certainly, nonetheless, very interesting indeed. If we play through the animation, of course, we've got Malik located here now over the Baltic nations here, the center of the low. But we've also got a very small, compact area of low pressure approaching the Western Isles of Scotland. That is, of course, Storm Corrie, which has been named by the Met Office, and that is expected to produce possibly 80 to 90 mile an hour winds and exposure over northern Scotland later this evening and through the overnight period, with conditions eventually improving through the course of tomorrow morning. But if we play through the loop, you can see here exactly what has taken place. So this is the current position of these systems here. But if I play through the animation, here's Malik. It of course hammered the UK, moved across into the Baltic Sea area. Pressure dropped, I think, to about 960 millibars. Lots of wind associated along the Norwegian coast. We've seen gusts approaching 100, if not exceeding 100 miles an hour. Through Denmark, we've seen very damaging winds through the Baltic Sea area, and of course across even northern portions of Germany and Poland. We've had big impacts. But notice here, that system moves out. The next system is deepening. It's approaching the UK, and it's set to have very big impacts tonight. So yes, winter weather hasn't been around much this winter. I get that, but at least if we're not going to see cold, we might as well see storminess, and that is certainly what we're seeing here. And if I play through the animation in terms of the strongest winds, you can see here how, with the movement of Malik heading eastwards, we transfer the strongest winds out of the UK and into Europe here. So play through the loop here. You can see here that Scotland battered, northern England as well, Denmark, the Norwegian coast, then of course through the heart of Central Europe. We've seen very strong winds, and then at the very end of the loop, you can see here the winds picking up at 15, and this is of course kilometers per hour, but a 59 there showing up at the very end of the loop, indicating the approach of Storm Corrie, which is rapidly deepening as I speak here. So interesting things for sure. Ahead of Storm Malik, we've seen an incredibly mild night across particularly the northern half of the UK. Straight westerly wind. We've seen this, in fact, actually 2 nights previous to this. I was driving back from Ullapool after crossing over the Minch from Stornoway, and straight westerly wind. And we've seen a temperature on the dash reading 13 Celsius near Alness, near Invergordon where I live. And lo and behold, yesterday morning we've seen 13 degrees at 1 a.m. in Tain. So very mild. Firn effect, of course, at play with the direction of the wind and the strength of the wind. The following 24 hours, so this morning, very different story altogether. The system, Malik, pushed out. So, of course, we went from a southwesterly wind to a northwesterly wind, ushered in the colder air. And this is exactly what we're going to see now. As we go through the next week to 10 days, we're going to see systems coming and going, milder ahead of it, colder behind it. Unfortunately, that is not going to excite winter weather lovers, I'm afraid, as we go forward here, for the simple fact that there's no locked in cold to speak about. When you lose any kind of blocking within the high latitude region, and you start to connect up the strong polar vortex, both at stratospheric and tropospheric level, the westerlies and the jet stream is roaring, and that is exactly what we're going to see as we go forward here. You can see here, this is the current setup of the GFS. Storm Malik centered over, what would that be, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, 970 millibars. So it's starting to slowly fill as we go through the course of today. And of course, we've got Corrie just about to make an approach on the western portion of Scotland here as we play through the loop. That's centre, crosses almost the north coast through the course of tonight. Deepening as it crosses over, we're expecting very strong winds, 50, 60 miles an hour widely through the central belt of Scotland this evening, and even in the northern portions of England. But then get into the central and north highlands, you're talking widespread gusts in excess of 70 miles an hour with exposed areas, so coastal, even some high elevation areas, likely to see wind gusts in excess of 80, approaching 90 miles per hour with the system. It's going to be interesting to actually see the comparison between the strength of wind yesterday versus the strength of wind tonight and overnight tonight. Between the two areas of low pressure. Of course, in Inverbervie on the Aberdeenshire coast recorded 85 miles per hour. Loch Liscarnock was 80 miles an hour. And of course, Cairngorm 147, strongest wind gust, I think, in a few years at least anyway. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops this evening. But as I play through the loop, that system eventually exits. Malik continues to fill over Eastern Europe. Notice that area of high pressure to the southwest of the UK. Folks, this is just a relentless area of high pressure. What that's going to do is it's going to, in a sense, stop cold air, proper cold air, from really digging in to our latitude of the northern hemisphere. If you've got that boulder in place, cold air does not manage to descend into the lower latitudes. It just simply bounces off that and gets deflected eastwards here, and that is exactly what we're going to see. More weather to speak about: northwesterly winds, west northwest winds over the next few days. Then we've got another feature comes through, mild ahead of it, like I say, cold behind it. We've got some snow to speak about with that probably, especially over high ground. I noticed, in fact, Slough Summit there, a light fresh covering of snow there, and that will probably be the case as we go forward here. And more systems come through aboard a very, very zonal flat upper air pattern here. Notice how west to east the flow is. We've got low pressure, pretty strong low pressure, elongated west to east between Norway all the way towards Greenland. We've also got an area of elongated east to west high pressure to the south. So of course you've just got an open door to brisk, if not strong, westerly winds here. But of course, with the snowstorm over eastern North America, as we press through the course of the week, we're going to get some entrainment of cold air from Canada, from the United States, into the westerly flow. So there is spells of colder air embedded within that flow, but nothing to write home about, nothing particularly exciting, unfortunately, as we go forward. And finally, if we play through the GFS ensemble here, so this is the view over the North Atlantic, and of course, this is the 500 millibar height anomaly chart. If we play through it, this is the storm system that dumped all the snow in the northeast, cold air in the backside. We get more shots of cold air coming down, but notice the reluctance of the high breaking down. It's just continuing to hold ground, and then you start to see the kind of flattening out of the upper air flow. So both at 500 millibars all the way down to the surface, we're going to get westerly winds through the course of the upcoming week here, possibly bending towards the northwest at times here. So nothing to write home about in terms of anything particularly cold, I'm afraid. So that's it for today. Hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, and I'll be back either tomorrow, if not on Tuesday, with more. Bye for now.